France was the fourth nation to acquire nuclear weapons. The first three had built theirs off of the work done during the Manhattan Project, with the USA doing the legwork, the USSR stealing secrets from the US via espionage, and the UK via essentially copying America's homework. But France's route to becoming a nuclear power was different and fraught with its own problems. So how did France do it? How did France acquire nuclear weapons? So, as of the end of World War II, France wasn't completely new to nuclear technology, and some of its own scientists had worked on the Manhattan Project under the British umbrella. So, at the end of the 1940s, the French government started a nuclear program with the help of Israeli scientists whose aid was fundamental in moving the project along. At first, the nuclear program was civilian in nature, and France very quickly became a world leader in the building of nuclear reactors. Naturally, having civilian nuclear power meant that nuclear armament was much easier because of all of that spare refined nuclear material just lying around. In 1956, after the Suez Crisis, France was left internationally humiliated and felt that neither the USA nor the UK could be relied upon to use their nuclear weapons in the defence of France. As such, the French sought to build their own and briefly actively worked with West Germany and Italy to build nuclear arsenals for all three. This was scrapped when Charles de Gaulle became president in late 1958, since he wanted France's nuclear program to be as self-sufficient as possible. A side effect of this decision was that unlike the British program, the French one was incredibly expensive and was a major drain on other parts of the French military. And the reason for this was that unlike when Britain began building nuclear weapons, the US was hostile to the idea. Not hostile enough to do anything about it, but American leadership made it clear that it felt that France did not need its own nuclear weapons. And as such, they got zero help from the US, which increased the cost of the program. So why allow Britain but not France? Well, it was because France's nuclear strategy was going to be fundamentally different from Britain's. You see, Britain had largely agreed to maintain the same deterrent policy as the United States, one which called for response in kind, no escalation, and no first strike. Whereas France had different plans. French leadership believed that an invasion by the USSR could only be stopped with a nuclear retaliation, meaning the Soviets would have a choice: invade and lose half of Ukraine and Belarus, or retaliate with their own nukes. And a Soviet nuclear attack would then force a response from the UK and the USA, since radiation doesn't care for borders, which for the French meant that they could effectively force the use of British and American arsenals if they wanted to. You can see why the two weren't so keen. French and Israeli scientists continued in collaboration until France had constructed and tested its first bomb in 1960. The test was carried out in Algeria and was promptly followed by Israeli scientists being dismissed from the program, and also a lot of grumbling from the USSR and mild annoyance from the USA. Algeria gained its independence in 1962, but the French continued to test there until the mid-1960s, where they changed their primary testing site to French Polynesia. By 1964, France had its first operational nuclear weapons and would go on to expand its arsenal throughout the Cold War. And thus, the French had, despite varying levels of opposition from the other nuclear powers, joined the club as its fourth member.